Hey there folks, Tim Slade here, and welcome back to the ATD Ask a Trainer video series. In today's video, I'm answering your questions on all things virtual facilitation. So let's get to it. It's really amazing to think about how much our industry and really the whole world has shifted in the last few months as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Not only are more people working from home, more people are learning from home. And as much as virtual facilitation isn't really a new concept, the fact is it's just been thrusted into the spotlight, especially as more and more organizations have been forced into adopting it as part of their learning strategy. And, well, I have to be honest, I think it's actually a good thing that we're all finally taking virtual instructor-led training seriously. However, it's of course left a lot of folks in our industry scrambling to optimize their classroom content for virtual facilitation and virtual delivery. So, with that in mind, let's get to your questions. All right, so our first question comes from Debbie Richards. Hi, Debbie. And Debbie asks, when does it make sense to use a producer for your webinar or virtual event, and how can you justify the extra expense? I love this question. Debbie, thank you so much for submitting it. The reason why I love this question so much is that I believe producers are kind of like the unsung heroes of our industry, especially as it relates to virtual facilitation. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what a producer is this really amazing person who kind of sits in the background while you're facilitating a virtual workshop, and they handle all the stuff that you would otherwise have to handle if the producer wasn't there. That's things like making sure the session gets recorded, because if you're like me, I would always forget to hit record. They make sure to pause the recording when you take a break, because if you're like me, I'd totally forget to pause the recording. They answer technical questions about the virtual classroom environment. They make sure participants can see your screen and hear your audio. They handle all of the things that you, as the facilitator, otherwise would have to deal with. And those are things that would take away from you being a great facilitator, right? That's what a producer is. They're great, right? So when does it make sense to have a producer, and how do you justify the expense? Well, justifying the expense is always going to depend on your organization and how many virtual sessions you're facilitating and how big they are and all of that stuff. However, it doesn't mean you have to have a dedicated person on the payroll to act as a producer. Maybe that's something that you as a facilitator can help do for other facilitators and vice versa, right? That's all it really takes. When should you use a producer? Well, gosh, I can't think of a time when you wouldn't want a producer. But in my experience, producers are great when maybe you're dealing with a large group of participants who are new to the virtual classroom or unfamiliar with the virtual tools that you might be using, and you might experience a lot of technical issues, right? Those are instances when you want to have a producer, people who can, or someone who can help answer questions, make sure everything runs smoothly. That's when you want to use a producer. So producers are great, and you should use them. All right, so our second question comes from Betty Danowitz, and Betty asks, I'm going to be facilitating a series of virtual workshops, and I don't want my participants to get bored. Where can I get ideas for virtual icebreakers and activities? I struggle with this as well. I have the hardest time thinking of icebreakers or activities for virtual environments because sometimes they feel so contrived and they feel fake and they feel forced. So for me, and this is what I'll say to you, Google is your friend. Google virtual icebreakers, Google virtual activities, and you will find a plethora of websites and resources that offer tons and tons and tons of ideas about virtual icebreakers and activities. And the last thing I'll mention is don't overthink it. They don't have to be complicated. They don't have to be contrived. Keep it simple. Have fun. Keep it lighthearted. Most people, including myself, roll their eyes when they hear the word icebreaker. Don't make it such a contrived thing. Keep it simple and have fun with it. And use Google. You'll find tons of stuff out there. All right, so our third question comes from Purna Panwar. Really cool name, and I hope I pronounced it correctly. I apologize if I didn't. Purna asks, I often deliver virtual classes that are broken into multiple sessions. What advice would you give about how and or when I should include pre-work or inter-session work? Fantastic question, Purna. The thing about virtual classrooms and virtual sessions is that nobody wants to be on a webinar or in a virtual classroom or on Zoom or whatever tool you're using. Nobody wants to be sitting in there for hours on end. So pre-work or intersession work allows you to add additional opportunities and layers of learning that take place outside of the virtual classroom. So when should you use it? Well, there's a couple instances when you can use it. First, pre-work or intersession work is great when you want to give your participants some self-study time, things that they're going to do on their own outside of the classroom. The biggest thing is just to make sure it's connected to whatever you're teaching in the classroom. So if you're going to give intersession work, make sure you're using whatever's learned during that intersession work, either before or after that assignment is given. The great thing about pre-work, on the other hand, is pre-work can help you save a lot of time and help you maximize the time when you're in the classroom. So for example, when I teach any of the ATD certificate programs, we often include pre-work, which might involve downloading practice files or participant guides or making sure you have certain software installed. And those are all things that if the participants can take care of it before they show up to the virtual classroom, it saves a ton of time. It helps us maximize the time we're in the classroom. So I hope that answers your question, Prerna. All right, so I think that's a wrap for today. And those were some awesome questions on virtual facilitation. Thanks to everybody who submitted a question for this month's video. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button below so that you'll get alerted when we publish a new video in the future. And of course, make sure to check out the ATD Ask a Trainer advice column by checking out the link below. Until next time, my name is Tim Slade, and I'll see you around.